Hello and welcome to this lesson on completing the square. So today we're going to look just at the skill of completing the square, but we will be using this skill to apply to lots of different useful things within the topic of quadratics. So you've seen the grid on the screen, which we've used when we've been factorising quadratics, but today we're going to do something slightly different. So I know if I have an x squared in this grid here, which has come from this quadratic expression on the top, and I've got 2x here and here. So what I've done is I've said, well, if I've got 4x, let's suppose I'm going to divide this 4x equally between these two spaces in my grid. We'll see why in a moment. So half of 4 is 2, so I must have 2x in each of the sections here. And so I'm not going to fill in this part of my grid just yet. I'm going to think about what I must have on the top and on the left-hand side, given that I've got x squared and then two x's. So I must have an x and an x, because those are the only things that I can multiply to make an x squared. And then on the top here, I must have a plus 2, so x times positive 2 is 2x. And then down here as well, I must also have a positive 2, so 2 times x is 2x. So the reason I divided my amounts of x into two equal parts is because I'm trying to create a square. So I want to multiply an expression by itself. So what I've got here so far is x add 2 multiplied by x add 2. So x add 2 squared. But when I now fill in this bottom right-hand part of my grid here, I'm going to get a plus 4. 2 times 2 is positive 4. And actually my expression is telling me that I need a positive 10. So I'm going to have to take this x add 2 squared and add a 6 to it so that I make the 10 that I need. And now what I can say is that this expression here, this quadratic, will be equal to x add 2 squared and then add 6 so that I get the full amount of 10 that I need. So that's why this is called completing the square. I'm going to create a square and then I'm going to add or subtract to that square whatever I need to make it equal to my original expression. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. Here I've got x squared add 6x add 22. So I know I've got to have x squared in my grid. And because I want to create a square, so I want the same along the top as down the side, I'm now going to take this 6x and divide it by 2. So I'm going to have a 3x and a 3x. So what I'd like you to do now that you've seen it done once is pause the video, fill in what must be along the top and down the side, and then fill in this part of the grid, the missing part of the grid. So pause the video and see if you can do that part. Okay, so what you should have done here is filled in your x and x multiplied by x is x squared, and then you must have had a positive 3 because positive 3 times x is positive 3x, and then a positive 3 down on the side there as well. But if that's what I'm multiplying together, then I must have a positive 3 times a positive 3 in this bottom right-hand part of the grid here, which is positive 9. So far I've got x plus 3 multiplied by x plus 3, or x plus 3 squared. And that gives me x squared. It gives me in total the 6x that I want, but it only gives me positive 9. And I need all of this to add up to give me 22, since that's what I've got in my expression. So could you pause the video and work out what needs to go into this green box to complete the square? Okay, so essentially we're answering the question, what do we need to add to 9 to make 22? And the answer is we need to add 13. So this expression here is equal to x add 3 squared, add 13. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Now this one looks a little different because we've got a negative amount of x here, but we're going to start off exactly the same. So we're going to fill in x squared, and then just like before, I'm going to halve this. So I'm going to share it out between these two parts of my grid. So that's going to be negative 5x and negative 5x. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, see if you can fill in what's going to go along the top and what's going to go along the side, and then can you fill in what's going to go in this part of the grid? So pause the video and see if you can do that part. Okay, so I should have an x and an x. I'm then going to need this time a negative 5 and a negative 5. And so what we've got to remember here is when we multiply negative 5 times negative 5, we're going to get positive 25 in this part of our grid. So just like before then, my expression is plus 30. So I've got the x squared I need, I've got the negative 10x in total that I need, but at the moment I've only got 25. So I need this to make a total of 30. So could you pause the video and see if you can work out what needs to be in the green box? And then can you write down what this expression is identical to in completed square form? Okay, so you should have worked out that you need to add 5. So now writing this expression at the top here in completed square form, I know it's going to be equal to x subtract 5 all squared, but then I need to add 5. So this expression in completed square form is x subtract 5 squared, add 5. Okay, here's another one for you to have a go at. Again, this is a little bit different because I need to make my total constant equal to a negative 10. So let's talk you through this one. You need an x squared. This then you're going to need to halve and share between these two bits of the grid. So that's going to give me 2x and 2x. Can you pause the video and work out what is going to go on the top and on the bottom? Work out what's in this part of the grid. And then can you work out what you're going to need to add or subtract to make a total constant of negative 10? Okay, so along the top, I'm going to need an x and an x, and then add 2 and another add 2. So we're doing x add 2 squared, and that means when I multiply these two constants together in this bottom right-hand part of my grid, I'm going to get positive 4. So I've got x add 2 squared, and that gives me the x squared I need, it gives me the 4x I need in total, but it gives me a positive 4, and I want this to give me a total of negative 10. So what have I got to have in this green part of my grid here? Well, I'm actually going to need negative 14, so that when I add the 4 and the negative 14 together, I get a total of negative 10. So this expression then is identical to x add 2 squared, subtract 14. One last example for you. So what I'm going to do here is ask you to pause the video right now to see if you can do this one all the way through. So pause the video and have a go. Okay, so filling in the grid then, we know we need an x squared in this top left-hand part of the grid. I've got negative 6x, so I'm sharing that in between these two. So I'm going to get negative 3x and negative 3x. So filling in the top and the left-hand side of my grid, I'm going to have an x, and then I'm going to need negative 3x and negative 3x. So I am working with x subtract 3 all squared. So when I multiply my -3 by my -3, I'm going to get +9. So x subtract 3 squared will give me the x squared I need. It will give me the -6x that I need, but it will give me +9 when my expression needs to be -12. So I need these two to add up to -12. So what's going to need to be here? Well, I need to subtract the 9 and then also have -12. So I'm going to need to subtract 21. So my expression here is going to be equal to x subtract 3, this should be squared, subtract 21. Okay, so here is your work for today. What I'm going to ask you to do is to pause the video and have a go at completing the square on these quadratics. Now, some of them have no constant at all. So what that means is whatever you add or subtract to your square, you need it to make a total of 0. So there's one like that just here where it starts off, and then there's one like that over here. So pause the video and have a go at completing the square on these quadratics.